My name is Cheryl Platz, and I am principal designer and owner at a company called Platz, which is a design education company. And as of December, I'm also a full-time principal user experience designer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But I'm not here today to talk to you about either of those things. Instead, we're going to talk about community, a very personal journey that I went through on, there we go, we're skipping a slide there. A very personal journey I went through as an actor, which is an interesting, an interesting experience. I improvise in my free time, and we were invited to participate in essentially a live-streamed television show. And just let's get the definition out of the way. Live streaming is a real-time, media-driven, asymmetric interaction at scale. So what you end up with is one broadcaster shouting into a void. This is my view from my personal broadcast station in my home. There is no audience there. You can't see them. You just sort of have to take a leap of faith that they're there. And this was the environment in the studio where we broadcast the internet television show. And you can see a couple of us are there. There's some cameras, but you don't get to see the audience. And that makes sense for television shows. That's normal. But internet communities and internet interactions are inherently interactive. So there's a very strange asymmetric nature to this work. You're supposed to adapt to the audience, but you can't see them. Just a little bit of level setting. 10 minutes is not enough time for all the concepts I want to share with you, but for those who are completely new to the concept of live streaming, there's two major platforms on the market. There's Twitch and there's YouTube. YouTube's really big, and it's kind of like the big commercial events, but it's not as good at community. And I could go on for a half hour about why that's true. Twitch is not quite as large and is more gaming focused, although it's not limited to gaming by any means. But Twitch is better at smaller scale, and more healthy communities have popped up on Twitch. And Twitch is where I set up my own live broadcasting home, the network we'll be talking about today. So let's talk about broadcast communities really briefly. So broadcast communities at their core inherently is one or more streamers. And this interaction, that's me. So I'm the purple circle here. But there are so many other people in this interaction. The next circle of folks in my community are my mods and my managers. These are people who are helping to enforce community standards and keep the interactive portion going, even if I'm distracted with the performance or some other part of the broadcast. Beyond that, we start to get into some informal personas, if you will. We have our contributors, which are people who are so moved by the broadcast or the community that they start to contribute to the community. That can be creatively with art or with crafts. It can be maintaining a community resource like a Wikia. But those folks start to pour back in to the broadcast community. And then our two biggest circles, chatters, are folks who are interacting with the stream in real time, usually text-based. But then there's a wider circle of folks who are watching but not chatting. This could be for any number of reasons. And again, I could go into that for a half hour, but we don't have time. So trust that at any broadcast, there are some folks who are silently consuming and may perceive themselves as part of the community, but just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. So all current platforms currently support live community interaction with the broadcaster, but not all interactions are created equal, as we know as designers. So I want to call out two major patterns that exist out there in broadcast communities today, particularly live broadcast communities. So just for context, this is a clip from one of the broadcasts we did. And what you're seeing here on your left is the live video, and there's usually audio, but we don't have time for that. And on the right-hand side is a chat panel. That circle of folks who are chatting, that's where they're connecting with the community in real time. Even for the community, this is a lot of data to manage. And for larger communities, this can become very overwhelming very quickly. You're taking in the show, you're tuning out a little bit to chat with someone. Sometimes the conversations are completely orthogonal. But this is the experience that a lot of our community members have during the broadcast. Chat-driven interaction works really well for small streams. It's easy, it's fast, it's cheap, and it's really low barrier to engagement for your audience. Even still, shyness can be a factor for folks, but it's pretty accessible. But unfortunately, chat-based interactions can be easily trolled. Just throw a couple of malevolent bots in there and suddenly nobody can interact in a quality way. And it really does not scale well to large communities. If you've ever heard of a show called Critical Role, which is a Dungeons & Dragons-based show, they can get tens of thousands of simultaneous viewers, and their chat can be completely overwhelming. So what do you do if you want to be either more interactive or you want to scale to larger audiences? We also have event-based interaction. This is me with a puppet that I talk to on Sunday mornings for fun, and in front of people on the internet that I've never met. And they're very dear to me, my community. That's Sprinkles. She would not forgive me if I did not introduce her. So we can interact with our audience based on events. Here we're reacting to a subscription that just came into the stream. And again, if I had more time, we'd dive in and see how this kind of affects folks. But take it on my word that events exist, and they're a really powerful tool for broadcasters, and they're really visceral for your audience. Imagine watching a television show and have it respond to your existence in the world. That's what this is for most of these folks. They're watching it on big screens. You can use your Xbox or your PlayStation to watch these streams, interact with them, and have them respond. So event-driven interactions give your audience an opportunity to have a larger impact on the broadcast, a very visceral one. And it's an opportunity for streamers to actually make money. Many streamers work full-time at their streams because of this revenue stream and a few other avenues available to them. There are some weaknesses. These events, as you know as designers, events are best if they're in real time, but these often paid interactions go through several back-end systems. So there's almost always a delay between when an audience member sort of starts an event and when it actually gets to the broadcaster. And to configure these interactions, you're essentially becoming a designer. You're becoming a game designer, trying to figure out how you're gamifying this experience for your audience a bit. So that's hard to figure out, even for people who are professionals at it. As a solo broadcaster, you have a fire hose of information. This is my broadcast window that I have. I get to see chat on the left-hand side. Mind you, I didn't design any of this. I'm just a consumer of it. But just so you see what we're dealing with. Live chat on the left. I've got to monitor my broadcast on the bottom, and then there's events on the top. And there are some audio cues as well. Now to Shadowrun. Shadowrun Corporate Sins is the show I referenced earlier. It was a professional-level, multicam studio live broadcast based on the Shadowrun universe. We essentially, it was a 3-hour live weekly broadcast where our audience watched us play a pen and paper role-playing game. When they pitched this project to us, I was very skeptical. But what we wanted to do with this show was go a little bit beyond live interaction, really get the audience involved in ways that no other broadcaster had done yet. And as a designer, I was like, oh. Just really briefly, so you know the scale we're working at, we had around between 350 to 700 live viewers per stream. Then you had another 400 to 1,000 folks watching on video on demand later, and then we had little sub communities that could be as many as 150 people. So it's not massive, but it is larger than a lot of us are accustomed to dealing with in a live environment or when we're designing for software-based interactions. So how do we let our audience interact with the show? One of the mechanics we settled on was allowing them to purchase dice for our characters. In this system, each additional die gave you a bit more chance of success. So you could pay $10 and give your favorite character an extra die to use when they wanted. That kept the actors in creative control of when to use the dice, but the audience could start to see their influence on the game. But it turned out it was an interesting back channel, too, because when dice started to roll in, we got the signal from our audience, which you can't get normally, that they were responding to the broadcast, that they were engaged. My husband once asked who bought me an engagement ring's worth of dice in response to an event that happened between two characters. These two characters, my character and that character, we didn't intend to get together romantically, but the audience responded so strongly positively to our characters that over time, that happened. That's in episode 65, so it took a while. We we slow rolled that one. But okay, so this is really engaging. I get to interact with television shows, I get to watch them. But what about people who can't watch in real time? Our fan base was global, all over the world, Europe, Australia, Asia, there were folks everywhere. So how do you give them a mechanic to make them feel engaged in the community? So part of our round-the-clock strategy was Twitter, giving our characters Twitter accounts and allowing them to converse with our fans or characters our fans set up, and allowing that to come back into the narrative. Another interesting piece of software, if you're interested in this space, is Discord, which is essentially Slack for gamers. This gives us an offline way to communicate with our audience when the chat room isn't functioning. This is essentially IRC for the modern age. And we could build smaller rooms where folks could engage and build essentially sub-communities in character inside the game universe and impact the story. There's a lot to unpack there that we don't have time for, but it was really compelling for the folks that participated. So we had 10 different show-specific chat rooms that allowed people to pledge for a corporation in Shadowrun and then start to plot about how our characters would fit into their plans. And they dictated entire plots of shows. It was amazing, these gifts from our audience. So moving on, and why bother? Why do all this interactivity? It's complicated, it's messy, it takes time. I feel like the proof was in the pudding here, because the level of engagement I saw from the audience was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before as an actor. If you get it right, interactive narrative and this sort of thing can really bring a special kind of community engagement. And part of it's just the fact that they kept watching. We did 3 hours a week for 65 episodes. That is 195 hours of broadcast, which is more than Seinfeld had. And people would watch it more than once. Why would you look at our faces that long? So there had to be something that wasn't our faces, because you look at any face that long, it falls apart. But so, obviously there was something there. And it was manifested in the creations, the contributions back to the community, the fan art that started showing up from a wide variety of folks. It was so fulfilling to see which episodes resonated. And this is all uncompensated art delivered by our fans, and it was, so shout outs to Shaliloquy and Alan the Lost and Final Fan Artist and Void Smoker, fantastic, and there were so many other folks. We had a full Wikia, we had podcasts spin up, and we started to incorporate the characters and concepts from those back into the story, and it became a feedback loop. So, running out of time. So I want to leave you with something, a few thoughts about what makes for a successful broadcast community based on my observations. Certain there's more science out there, but just from being on the front lines. First one we haven't talked about so far. A clearly stated code of conduct. It sounds simple, and this doesn't have to be complicated. It can be 3 or 4 bullet points about what is not allowed and what is allowed or expected in the community. We don't allow bullying. We do expect inclusivity. All people are welcome here. This gives your panel of moderators dedicated to enforcing those community standards clear and transparent ways of enforcing. And the Twitch platform also gives them tools for doing that. But if you just put mods out there without a clear code of conduct, things get messy quickly. So you need both of these things, people monitoring the system in real time, but people who are empowered with a clear set of guidelines. You also need some way for your community to express themselves, both a shared identity as part of the community, but also individuality, whether that's contributing to a wikia or contributing fan art. It doesn't mean that everyone will do it, but anyone who does do it is feeding energy into the community and validating everyone's participation in the community. So finding ways to celebrate those contributions, they're a great gift. And the other thing that differentiates these environments, these communities, is the sense of immediacy. It's why sports are popular. It's the gathering around the campfire, why that's a special moment. We, in a specific moment in time, or within a few hours of a moment of time, shared an experience. It is shared context. It builds trust over time. This immediacy, it gives us something that's common maybe when we have nothing else in common. And that rallying point is very important. Another important point I want to make is that Dunbar's number is magic, you know, around 150 people, that little guideline for how many folks we can manage in our heads. My experience on Twitch has given me a theory that this is modal, that we can switch back and forth, that we can engage wholeheartedly with the digital community of 150, just as we do with a real-life community of 150. So it's an interesting challenge to designers working on larger-scale communities. Can you support the emergence of smaller pods to keep your larger community healthy? It's worth investigating. So closing thoughts, what's special? Why bother? Why bother with these things that seem like they're gaming oriented? These communities, I have seen them provide connections beyond geographic boundaries. And the more spread out we are, a lot of folks can't travel like we can. And that gives a chance to share these alternate narratives, expose people to these different perspectives with the shared trust and understanding built by the immediacy of the events that are consumed. Common ground, this common ground I talked about, can calm the trolls. I had a troll come into my chat, and he didn't actually think he was trolling, and that, I think, was the difference. Came in, I was talking about a work achievement, and he's like, oh, marry me, and my mods wanted to shut him down right away, because we try not to do any like gender-based call-outs. And they you know, in their defense, they were protecting me, and I appreciate their work. But in this case, we engaged directly, and I just spoke directly to the camera, to this person, and said, hey, did you know that by responding to one of my accomplishments, by saying that, hey, you should marry me, you're implying that my only value is by my relationship with a man? And do you know how many folks do that to women broadcasters? And he responded, he had never thought about it that way. And he stayed and engaged with us for the rest of the stream. Not all engagements are like that, and it is emotional labor for the person engaging, but it can be powerful. And the last point, these communities allow us to create safe, inclusive spaces for everyone. Often online communities get a bad rap as replacing in-person interactions, but my experience has been different, and if you take anything else away, take this away. These digital communities include people who might be excluded by in-person interactions. Minorities, LGBTQ folks, anxiety, depression, autistic spectrum, disabilities that prevent you from leaving the house. All of these people deserve human interaction too, whether those disabilities be situational or permanent. And these communities can be just as fulfilling as real-life interactions. Everyone deserves a chance to connect with other humans. Not all of those interactions need to be in person. So let's build on that promise and enable joy and connection, creativity, and inclusion. Thank you. Thank you to all my communities, too.